All right, today's going to be a great topic because if you use augmentative alternative communication, you do not want to miss this one. We're going to look at what is it about LAMP that is highly effective? What is it about LAMP that is making it so great as an augmentative alternative communication device? So I don't believe the secret sauce is in LAMP, the program itself, but it's in LAMP's 84 core vocabulary board. That's right. LAMP always starts with this 84 symbol vocabulary board. That's from the beginning stages to the later stages. It's called consistency. And we know from our intervention research, consistency creates change. So what is it about consistency? And we're going to look at 6 different areas of consistency with this 84 symbol board. And why these 6 areas of consistency is what's going to create change in augmentative alternative communication. So first and most importantly, with any intervention we do, it's the internal locus of control, which means the child knows that the child is in charge of the learning experience. The child has to take on the role as teacher, and the sooner, the better. We are here to assist to the child, not to teach the child. The child needs to know that the child's in control of the learning experience. By keeping these 84 symbols on the front board always the same. It's always the same. So at a more advanced level, these symbols will turn into words and you can get rid of the pictures at that point. They're always going to be in the same place. They're always going to be the same core vocabulary, these 84 symbols. Why is that so important? Because the goalpost doesn't change. That means the child is always in charge and the goals are always the same. You're not going to have a teacher that's always changing the location of the symbols. You're not going to have a teacher deleting symbols, adding symbols, but the goalpost is always changing. You can't master it that way. The control is with the child because the board is not changing. The goalpost is not changing. So that's the number one reason that consistency creates change. The child can be in control because the board is not changing. Second reason why, errorless learning. What I can do with this board of 84 symbols is I can go and take and black all of them out except for one symbol. So that symbol is always going to be in the same place. It's always going to be the same size. And when I add symbols to that, it's not going to change. So that allows me to make sure that the child is at an 80% challenge point, not lower than that. So the child is frustrated or habituating errors, and not higher than that, where you have status quo and things are too easy, at an 80% accuracy rate. So it allows us to do errorless learning because practice makes perfect, just as practice makes imperfect. And we don't have to move any of the symbols around. We don't have to change any of the symbols. What we do very easily is just make symbols not visible. So I make not visible symbols here. If I look at this board, such as the prepositions, such as the helping verbs, I take those and make them not visible, these grammatical morphemes in the beginning stages. This is not a beginning core vocabulary. They can become visible later on after the child is at an 80% accuracy rate with the core verbs and the core functional vocabulary words. Then I'll add in the morphemes and the helping verbs and these later developing words. So I just black them out. Another reason, so consistency creates change. The symbols are always in the same place. It's always the same symbols. We're just going to black out symbols that they won't be using and add them as they will be. Then we can do the 80% accuracy rate. The third reason why is that the repetition of the same complex motor sequence is always the same. So we know that through repetition, automaticity develops, and we want it to be automatic so the child can use their cognitive capacity and their attentional capacity on communication. They can focus on what they want to say and how they want to say it, because the motor act and the motor sequence will become automatic through repetition. So because we have all of the symbols always in the same place, the motor repetition becomes automatic. So consistency creates change. The fourth reason why is we want to keep our hands off of the child as much as possible. When we have our hands on the child and are guiding the child, we are doing the motor planning, the motor programming, the execution, the cessation of movement, all of that complex visual motor integration. We're doing that for the child. We can't do the child's push-ups for them. So what do we have to do? Get our hands off the child. How can we do that? By keeping the symbols the same location, same symbols, so they can become independent. If we're always changing the symbols, they're always going to need our assistance. We don't want that. We want to keep our hands off of the child. The children will learn through experience how to better, more efficiently work. Everyone has a unique body. All of us have unique history. All of us have unique sensory processing, and we have unique motor plans. So we all move in a unique way. So that means we all do things differently. What's most efficient for me is not what's most efficient for you, and not what's most efficient for the child that I'm working with. So when I teach a yoga class, all of the poses should look entirely different. And that's because we all have different bodies and we all have different neuromuscular histories. So we all experience our worlds differently and we move differently as a result, which is a good thing. What is best practice for me is not best practice for someone else. So we can keep our hands off of the children and let the children more efficiently move through experience and through repetition, not through our physical guidance. If we're providing physical guidance for them, we're doing the neuromuscular planning, programming, execution. We're doing all of that for them. We can't do their push-ups for them. They're only going to get stronger by doing their own push-ups. So keep our hands off of the child. Consistency creates change. The fifth reason why this is so great, having the core board here, is that it's 84 symbols. That means it's complex. We're not starting with 2 symbols and that turns into 4, which turns into 6, which turns into 12, and so forth and so forth. We're starting with 84. And what we know about motor learning and what we know about speech development is that the higher the target, the higher the gains. So if we work on this marathon in speech therapy, these 84 symbols, what's going to naturally develop is the ability to visually scan 36 symbols, or the ability to visually scan 12 symbols. It's kind of like we're doing a marathon training in speech therapy. And as a result, the child can naturally run a 5K, naturally run a 10K, naturally run the half marathon. Because in speech therapy, we're working on 84 symbols, a complex treatment target, we're going to get spontaneous development of less complex treatment targets or less complex sets of symbols. So consistency creates change. We're going to work at a complex level in therapy on the initial stages, and as a result, we're going to get spontaneous development of smaller sets of symbols, and their ability to visually scan and use visual motor integration will be more natural because they've done it at a more complex level. Okay, the last reason why, number 6. Why is this so great to have 84 core word vocabulary here? And that's because these core words have multiple meanings. And when children use the core words for different meanings, they learn to flexibly use language and to generalize language at an early level. So for instance, if we're using the word go here, go. So if we're using go, we could use go very early on for multiple purposes. We could use go to activate a top. We could use go to release a ball in a chute. We could use go to bounce on a Swiss ball. We could use go to leave an activity. We could use go to jump on a trampoline or to run, ready, set, go. We could use go to start an activity, and we could use go go away to protest. So with this core vocabulary and these words that have multiple meanings, we teach children early on that flexibility of language use, and that you use language across a variety of settings, a variety of activities, a variety of people, and for a variety of purposes. So that's another reason why it's nice to start off with an 84 symbol core vocabulary, and that the children really do learn that there's novelty to language and that you can use these words in novel ways for many different purposes early on. So we're not just going to use go for go release a ball from a ball chute, and that's the only reason we're going to use go. That is the opposite of what we want to do. That teaches children to undergeneralize language. So once again, consistency creates change, knowing that that's where go is. It's always going to be there. It's always the same symbol. And that gives us the freedom that consistency does to use go in a variety of manners, because this remains consistent as a foundation. So this is the 6 takeaways that we have from LAMP, and what we could use whatever the augmentative alternative device is. The idea is to have a complex core board of multiple symbols. In this case, 84 to start. And you can always cover symbols and have symbols not visible and reveal them as time goes on. The idea is don't change the symbols and don't change the location of the symbols, because consistency creates change. We talked about 6 ways consistency creates change. One way consistency creates change is it creates an internal locus of control. The goal point is always the same. It doesn't change on the child. So the child determines whether or not the child is successful or not the teacher, and the teacher always changing what the goal is. Secondly, it's errorless. We can take these 84 symbols and we can make them not visible. And at an 80% accuracy rate, we can go higher with the number of symbols if the child's at 90%. We can go lower with the number of symbols if the child's at 70%. So we're always at that challenge point. So consistency of the 80% rule creates change. We don't want to go over it and we don't want to go below it. The next thing I want to look at is the repetition of the complex motor sequences. That builds automaticity of the motor act. So what we're looking at with this is that practice makes perfect. If we keep things in the same place, that creates automaticity. When we have automaticity, then we're able to use our capacity, attentional, cognitive, even motor capacity for communication purposes outside of the communication device. Maybe for gestures, maybe for creating stories in our head, maybe for word retrieval, that'll free it up for that. So that consistency and everything staying the same on the board creates change in that manner. Another reason that the consistency creates change is that we can get our hands off of the child, because the symbols are always in the same place. And the child learns, when I press X, Y, and Z, I get A. And from that experience and through repetition, the child moves more efficiently over time. So the skill doesn't develop by us putting our hands on the child and us doing the child's push-ups for them, by doing the motor planning, by doing the motor programming, by doing the motor sequencing, by doing the execution. No, it happens by the child doing their own push-ups and doing it themselves, and then having a natural reward as a result. They're going to move more efficiently through natural practice. They're going to learn how to use their body in the most efficient way possible. Better than anyone with every letter in the alphabet behind their name, some physical therapists. And people are experts in their own bodies. The next area that we're looking at is number 5, and why consistency creates change, is that it's complex. If you are using visual motor integration for 84 symbols, then suddenly 42 symbols can come naturally, or 36, or 12, or 6, or 10, because you've built up this complex skill at the highest level. So you're working at the marathon level in speech therapy, so then it's going to become more natural to go for the 10K or the 5K or the half marathon. And what that is smaller sets of symbols. You're going to be able to visually scan them and use visual motor integration naturally and spontaneously because you've been practicing it on an 84 board with consistency. All right, the next and last reason, number 6, why consistency creates change is because you have the same symbols. You're able to use them for multiple different ways and multiple purposes and multiple settings and multiple people. And that teaches early on children to use language flexibly and to generalize language instead of for a single activity with a single person in a single place. So consistency creates change in that manner. The consistency of the symbols always being the same allows the child to provide more variability in what you do with these symbols. So I hope that this LAMP lesson has shed some light on your own practice in AAC. I know for me, it's been so much fun using LAMP in my practice. I am by no way an affiliate of LAMP. I have nothing to do with them, but I do see that there's secret sauce in the 84 symbol core board. And I see, as I said, there's 6 great benefits. Now, if you want to know about how to develop educationally rich activities for children using augmentative and alternative communication, I highly recommend my book. So Speech Sound Disorders Comprehensive Evaluation and Treatment is not about treating a mouth. It's about treating a whole child. It's about treating the core. It's about treating the gross motor, the fine motor, and the social interaction piece. So I encourage you, it's an amazing book. I encourage you to get it. If you haven't gotten it so far, you're gonna love it. And with that said, it's time to roll up our sleeves and change the world one child at a time.